So this is a short video about Chinese bindings and what I learned in my class with Professor Soren Edgren. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about handling and about the books in general, and things I learned in the hopes that this will be helpful to multiple people. So first of all, in terms of terminology, Soren wanted to say that he doesn't really like the phrase stab bindings when used for these Chinese bindings. And I can completely understand why now that I know a lot more about their history. And that's because these bindings are called thread bindings, and they are sewn to an extent, but what's really holding them together are little paper nails, for lack of a better word, called spills. And you can see the tail ends of these here in this book. And so the spills are Japanese paper that is twisted together until they form a very fine point, and then they are slid through holes, usually 2 holes, towards the top of the book and then towards the bottom of the book. And there is a wide edge on one end, and once the small pointy end is through all of the pages of the book, then the fat end and the pointy end on the other side are sort of hammered down so that they're flat. And after that, when the spills are through the main body of the text block, then the covers are added, and that's what is actually sewn on. So these are sewn or thread bindings. And this was pretty typical in 19th, 20th centuries. So when I first look at this book, this collection of books, what I'm looking for is seeing that the threads are on the right side. So in Chinese, books are read from right to left. And so the spine is always going to be on the right-hand side. And in Chinese bindings, typically they use 2 threads to sew, as opposed to Japanese bindings, which use only 1 thread. And in Chinese bindings, you see an uneven dispersion of the sewing stations. So we have 2 smaller stations here, and then 3, it's divided into 3 even sections here. And that's pretty typical of Chinese bindings, whereas Japanese bindings, all of the stations will be very even. So you'll see all of the holes evenly displaced. So again, Chinese bindings have 2 threads, and then they have uneven placement of the sewing holes. And there are usually 4 sewing holes in Chinese sewn bindings. So this book here is what you would typically see. This is a pretty non-damaged work, and the covers are very plain. This is just a plain wrapper, plain paper, and then inside you don't often see this, but this would have been a protective coating on the inside on this fly leaf to protect from pests. So the thread on the left, or sorry, thread on the right, spine on the right is one key to knowing that it's on the right side and the work approaching it the right way. Another way, and there are a couple other ways to know that you're approaching it in the right way, and that is by looking at the margins. So in Chinese bindings, this is called the heaven edge, or the heaven margin, and then the earth margin. And the heaven is always bigger than earth. So that is an instant way to know that this is the correct side up. Another way to know that this is the correct side up is that any text will be written, or any titles will be written on the bottom edge. And that's because Chinese bindings were once stored horizontally on the shelf. And so this would have been a quick way to know what the title is, and what number volume. So usually the number volume will be on the right side or the spine edge of the thread. So you can print out some Chinese numbers and be able to tell pretty quickly what number volume this is. So this looks like number 2. So this is a really good way to know how to handle these. And that is, again, the binding, the spine on the right with the heaven and earth margins correctly in place. You can also quickly see that on the spine, that this is quite a bit shorter where this is the foredge. This edge marks the margin here. You can see that printed. So this definitely looks like a lot more space at the top than at the bottom. So you can tell that this is in the correct position. Chinese bindings are printed on flexible paper. They are folded over so that the fold is along the foredge and the loose edge is sewn through with the spills and with the thread here. What else? Oh, in terms of handling, I learned in my class that books would have really been flipped through quite a lot like this to read, or I guess like this. That was my Western approach. So everyone's changing and learning. So seeing scholars holding books just in their hands really loosely and flipping is completely normal, because this paper was meant to do this. It was very lightweight, very flexible, and very strong. So those are a couple things I learned. I hope that you learned a lot too, and I hope that it's helpful.